Hi, my name is Cheryl Bremy, and I'm giving an update on research to inform passage spacing for migratory amphibians and to evaluate the effectiveness of a novel elevated road segment passage. Shoot. Well, first I want to say that I'm really sorry I can't be there in person today. And secondly, I want to congratulate Nova Simpson on her Achievement Award recently given at ICOET. Congratulations. And first, just a brief background to the pooled fund studies being presented today. From 2016 to 2020, in collaboration with Western Transportation Institute, we did a number of studies to inform technical guidance for barrier and road crossing systems for reptiles and amphibians, which was funded by Caltrans. And as part of this work, we identified species and species groups at highest risk of negative road impacts, created spatial tools to identify highway segments that overlap ranges of the highest at-risk species. We helped to develop a new camera system to increase the detection probability of reptiles and amphibians. We also researched reptile and amphibian responses to different fence materials and tested the effectiveness of turnarounds for reptiles and amphibians. And we also researched the amphibian movements in relation to barrier fencing to inform the spacing of underpasses for migratory amphibians. And we completed this with the California tiger salamander, but we did not complete this for the Yosemite toad. And then finally, we developed and implemented a prototype design of a new crossing structure. And these last two studies directly fed into the research that I'm giving an update on today. So from this work, we've produced several journal publications and peer-reviewed products that are all freely available online. I won't go over them individually, but in particular, we have a 7-chapter report on all of these studies available on the Caltrans website, the DRISI website. And we just recently published our California tiger salamander study on fence movement distances and recommended passage spacing from these results. So this pooled fund study builds upon these previous studies. So first, migratory amphibians are one of the highest risk groups to negative road impacts. And this is largely because they often travel long distance annually from upland to wetland habitats to breed, and often this requires crossing roads very slowly. And this study has 3 parts. The first is to inform the spacing of crossings for migratory amphibians. And in order to do this, we must document how far they move along a barrier before they either find a passage or give up and go back into the habitat. So the figures below are from the California tiger salamander study. And on the left are models from Jeff Tracy on the probability a salamander will find a passage based upon how far from the passage they first encounter the road barrier fencing. So the study showed that the probability rapidly declined as the distance to the passage increased. Also, salamanders were less likely to find the passage if they initially turned the wrong way, away from the passage. So the figure on the right shows the distribution of the distances salamanders moved along the fence line before giving up. And these data allowed us to predict that if passages are spaced less than 12.5 meters apart in the migratory pathway, we estimate that 90% of the population would encounter a road passage. So through pooled fund studies, we're doing the same research with Yosemite toads to build on these results and see how variable these give up distances are among different migratory amphibians. The second objective of this study is to evaluate the effectiveness of a new crossing structure, which we call an elevated road segment, or ERS. And it's basically a low bridge structure on land that allows free movement of animals underneath and can be made to any length, depending upon the width of the corridor needed. Our prototype was only 8 inches high and built on a Yosemite roadkill hotspot in Sierra National Forest, and has gaps that are permeable to rain and light. And these have been shown to be important components of successful amphibian passages published in other studies. How do we do this? We monitor the movements of individual toads along fencing using specialized active trigger camera traps in combination with individual recognition software. So this allows us to monitor distance and speeds the animals move along the fence, as well as direction they're moving and direction changes. We also have these cameras under the ERS along with time-lapse cameras to record animals moving underneath the passages. The third objective of this study is to adapt this prototype design for use on primary roads and highways. So for this, we're working with a transportation engineering firm in consultation with Caltrans engineers to come up with several design options, including analysis of costs and materials. We're currently meeting our timeline goals with this project. We just removed the cameras from the field site last week before a large snowfall and have had a quick preliminary review of the photos. So although we have not gone through all of the photos, unfortunately, it appears in 2021, it was a poor year for Yosemite toad activity at this site, as well as other species. And we believe this may be due to several reasons that were beyond our control. One, there was a huge fire in the Sierras in 2020 that burned right up to the edge of the meadow system next to the ERS. Second, the Forest Service cleared down wood and vegetation due to the fire, and we believe this provided microhabitat for the toads. And then finally, there was little rainfall during summer months last year. Although this year did not greatly increase the sample sizes as we had expected, we still plan to pool the data across the years of the study to both get our best estimates of Yosemite toad movement distances and to evaluate the crossing structure for not only the toads, but multiple species. So the photo below shows a Yosemite toad moving under the ERS over an active light trigger threshold. In addition to the Yosemite toad, we have documented many species using the passage, and including Pacific tree frogs, Ensatina salamanders, 2 species of snakes, at least 2 species of lizards, and at least 10 species of small mammals. Finally, for adapting the design concept to primary roads and highways, we're working with Dokken Engineering on 3 design options. 2 are low bridges with different configurations of grading to allow for permeability of rain and light. And 1 is an elevated roadway with fill and repeating culvert passages with middle grates to allow for the permeability of rain and light. The height and spacing of these passages can be varied based upon the needs for the target species. We met to discuss designs in April with Caltrans engineers, and we'll be convening another meeting prior to finalization of the concept designs and report by the end of this year. And I can say that there are an increasing number of people from transportation and conservation agencies, as well as a number of citizen, newt, and salamander brigades that are asking for these designs and want to implement them as soon as possible. That concludes my update on this project, and Robert Fisher will be available to answer any questions. I'm also available at cbremy@usgs.gov for any follow-up questions or comments. Thank you.